today's video, we are counting down 10 viewer favorite Christmas dupes to get you inspired for the holiday season, starting with number 10. Fell in love with these snowflake door corner pieces I found on Etsy, and I thought to myself, Dollar Tree has these large MDF snowflakes that we may be able to dupe this with. One thing's for certain, we're gonna get one corner out of this one snowflake. You know what I'm saying? I used a large paint stick to brace and just cut us a nice little corner out. And I made sure to include that circular hanger bit because we're not going to be needing it. Then it was just rinse and repeat over and over again with the box cutter. Make sure you're protecting yourself along with your surface as you're doing this. And no, scissors won't work. I tried. All in all, it really took me about 10 minutes to get this section cut out. You could absolutely use whatever means necessary you want. This is just how I went about it. And then I used my little finger sander to sand down any excess. For the color, I'm just using white. Absolutely use whatever color you feel is mingling with your decor this season. I did not put any hangers on the back of this. I figure we're going to be sitting it on the trim over top of the door. So I just took a couple little pieces of painter's tape, balled them up in the back, and put them on the very ends of the snowflakes. And you can see that it's pretty flush up against the wall, just like that. And I don't have to worry about it messing up my paint when I take it off that corner. I absolutely thought this framed paper dot Christmas tree was beautiful, and I got the idea to create something similar with some napkins. So I grabbed a Dollar Tree frame and I painted it up white with my Waverly Snow White chalk paint, allowed this to dry, and then I went and grabbed some cardboard to trim it down to size for our backing. I decided to go with cardboard. If you wanted to use real wood, you absolutely could, but I knew Dollar Tree had these amazing wallpaper pieces, and it was just a matter of picking which one was going to be perfect for the background on our piece. So I grabbed a couple and then made a couple comparisons with the frame and with the napkins until I decided which wallpaper I thought would match the best. Then I trimmed the wallpaper down to size, attached it to the cardboard, and put it inside our frame. For the tree trunk part, I just grabbed some dowels and I cut them down to size. The size really is relative according to what you think is long enough. I didn't measure mine, I just eyeballed them and went with it. Two of these pieces are napkins, and then one is a piece of burlap. I couldn't really find a blank napkin that I felt made sense with these two pieces, so you'll notice here that I'm using double-sided tape to attach the napkin. I want it to have some freedom that if I mess this up, I could pull it back off. So I started out with the double-sided tape. I put like 2 or 3 strips down, and then gave it a little bit of a wavy appearance. You could do this as much or as little as you would like. I just went with a minimal amount just to give a little something something. You could absolutely leave it flat, completely up against the board. You could grab some scissors, give it that scalloped look, but I decided just to do that mostly with the napkin pieces. I used hot glue for the burlap because I knew that the glue wasn't, or the tape wasn't really going to hold that into place, and then just alternated with the layers and trimmed the tree up as I attached everything into place. At the top of my tree, I decided to add a little bit of greenery and a star. Absolutely finish off your piece however you would like. I love how shabby chic this piece turned out. How adorable are these faux Christmas tree crochet planters I found on Etsy? And people, no worries, if you can't crochet, I have some options for you to be able to dupe this piece. First up, we're gonna head on into Walmart and grab a couple of these terracotta planters that are only 97 cents each. They also have an option where you can get 3 of them in a pack for $2.48. But I decided to roll on with the 97-cent ones. If you can't crochet, people, head on over to Dollar Tree, especially this time of year. They got the hats, they got the gloves, they got the head wraps, and they got different colors. This was the only one I wanted to use for this project. For the color that they had, I didn't see any red or greens. So I grabbed this head wrap in the white, and I just kind of took a second to realize we needed to paint our pot. Okay, we need that terracotta pot color in the background to just go away. And I do just want to remind everyone it's important to check the paints you're using to make sure that they go on the surfaces. I use multi-surface paint for this. I decided to go ahead and paint an extra red one and a green one. We'll get to that in just a little bit. I allowed these to dry 24 hours for some cure time to ensure that this tacky glue was going to not just pop right back off once I attached it over top of the paint instead of directly onto the terracotta pot. I spread this out in several different sections because I knew we were going to have to use hot glue to get that immediate bond, especially around the edges, to be able to stop this piece from completely fraying once we started to cut it. In my experience, tacky glue works really well with fabric onto plastic, onto glass, onto wood, onto terracotta. So I knew that for a long hold, it was going to be important to have that underneath of the fabric. However, being able to get it on immediately and stay in place, we're counting on that hot glue for that effect. I went all around the rim on the top, securing everything until it met in the back, and then I pulled it all completely snug and then did the same thing at the bottom and then trimmed it all down. I cannot stress enough how important it is for you to keep in mind that this must be glued down before you start trimming off the excess. If it's not glued and you start trimming, those frayed bits are not going to stay. For the other 2 pots, I wanted to share some cool ideas. Dollar Tree did not have any yarn I was looking for or crocheted pieces. So I ran on into Walmart where I was able to pick these up for $3.42 each. I love the colors and I love how thick the yarn was. I felt like these were going to be perfect for these 2 ideas. And for those of you that don't know this about me, I can actually crochet. Now, don't be hitting me up in the comments, getting your panties in a bunch or your trousers. Because I'm not using the exact technical terms here in crochet lingo, okay? I don't teach crochet and I just know what I know and I don't know why I know it. I was taught it little and for some odd reason it was like riding a bike, okay? For the crocheters out there, I wanted to share this idea for just another thing to get crafty around the holidays. I used a chain to create the length for the bottom of the pot, and then I did a single stitch. And I'm pretty sure those are the correct terms. Okay, pretty sure. I just did a single stitch for the height of the pot. And the reason I only did the chain for the bottom of the pot is so we could wiggle our whole piece over the pot so it fits snugly on there without having to glue it. This way you could absolutely switch this out as the seasons or your decor style changed. You could just change the crochet pieces that you created to go around your little decorative planners. When I was all done with that, I took an extra piece of yarn to attach the two ends on the back and then wiggle our piece onto our planner. For the green yarn, we're going to just create a braid. Now, to do that, I'm going to need something to hold the end of that braid on. So I'm just taking one of my containers, opening it up, tying a knot, and then pushing down the top of that knot into the container. It's just going to hold it into place for me while I'm braiding. I mean, you guys do this however you want to hold your braid down. Okay, don't let me stop you. Then just begin braiding and braid for as long as you think you need to get the amount of braid. I didn't measure it, I'm sorry. And that's all we're going to do for this one. We're going to take that braid out and we're going to just wrap it around our pot. I'm going to use some tacky glue and some hot glue, start at the bottom and work my way up. So this way, if you cannot crochet, and if you're at Dollar Tree or you're at your local stores and cannot find any budget-friendly crocheted pieces to be able to recreate this, you can easily grab some yarn and then just make a braid and do this with as many different colors as you would like and have some really amazing pieces to add to your decor. You can fill yours with whatever you would like. I grabbed some messy moss and I grabbed some little greenery pieces, and that's going to be it for these. If you're anything like me, you struggle with florals, and Etsy has a ton of beautiful makers to support who have amazing ideas with bucket decor. I wanted to give my hand at trying a couple pieces and grab these buckets from Dollar Tree. I picked up two and then grabbed some of my TDS dry rub-on transfers. You'll notice they're all cut up, and that's because I use them all the time. I just cut out some sections to put on these little buckets to give that rustic feel. Really love rustic things, especially around the holidays. And anytime I'm able to shove a pine cone or some wood laser cutouts in anything, I'm game for it. When I was happy with the transfers, I then grabbed some greenery and some floral foam and went ham on my buckets. Absolutely put whatever you would like in your pieces. I love this idea and how amazing little pieces like this can add a little something to your home around the seasons. For this Kirkland's dupe, I was searching Dollar Tree's ornaments section to see if I could find something that would work. And lucky for me, I did. They had the bells in silver and gold, however, they were glittery. I know, but we're gonna make this work, okay? First off, we're gonna have to get rid of these little hangers. And honestly, it was really easy. They're these little twisty ties. You just, untwist them and they pop right on off. However, I was already starting to get stressed out because it was getting messy. We are going to put a stop to that by applying 2 layers of Mod Podge on each one of these and allowing them to dry in between. This is going to seal in all them glittery bits and stop them from shedding everywhere, so we can put a layer of chalk paint over top of these pieces. Now I checked them just by rolling them around in my hands to make sure there wasn't a ton of glitter coming off. Now keep in mind, if you want to spray these with some Rust-Oleum clear spray paint, that would work really well also, because there were still glittery pieces coming out of inside of our little bells, but I was fine with it for this. And then I took a sponge and tappity tap tapped that chalk paint all over each one of our bells. It ended up taking 2 coats for decent coverage, and once they were dry, it was time to bring on in the hammer. I'm gonna make it make sense. Hold on a second. For the ends, we're gonna be using these little pieces of scrap wood I painted the same color white, okay? As you see me putting these on top here, it's not sturdy, okay? These bells ain't sitting on top of each other without some finagling, and that's what the hammer is doing. It's creating a divot and making the ends flat. So when we put them on top of each other, see how it perfectly just falls in the little divot we've created? That's because the bell stays curved, you know what I'm saying? And you only had to do this to the one side and the piece that was on the top and the bottom, if that makes sense. Hopefully you're rolling on with me. I used some tight Bond Quick and Thick and some hot glue right next to each other to attach everything. This turned out super sturdy, and it surely would not have without me hammering the pieces flat and making those divots, so this way each piece set into each other. I was trying to just pile them suckers right on top of each other. I'm like, I can't figure out how these are just gonna stay and be sturdy to hold anything on top of them, and the hammer, it was a problem solver. Now let's take a look at our Kirkland's inspiration for $59.99 and how my dupes turned out up against those beauties for $6.25 because I had the scrap wood in my stash. You could create the ends so many different ways. Even use some little terracotta saucer pieces. That would look really cool as well. But I was trying to recreate these as cheap as possible and using pieces in my stash. Dollar Tree's frame section is a perfect way to dupe some high-end Kirkland's decor, and they have various sizes to choose from. For this dupe, I'm gonna go with this large piece right here. If you want to paint your piece, go right ahead. I actually like the frame, and I think it's gonna work perfect just the way that it is and the color that it is. So I'm just removing everything, and then I'm flipping the picture over, and we're gonna use the white background of it. For this first idea, I'm just gonna take a piece of TDS A4 in size rice paper and lay it right over top of that white paper and put our glass down on top of the rice paper. You can cut out a piece of poster board to go on top if you would like, but I felt like this idea was fairly simple, and as you can see here in our Kirkland's inspiration piece, it still gives the same effect. There are so many ways you can take this idea and remix it to fit your decor throughout the year. Dollar Tree has so many different size frames, and painting them to match your home is super simple. Whether your idea is to use a larger piece like this or a smaller piece like this, the idea, in my opinion, is high-end looking either way. For these first two inspirations, I just used TDS creative products, whether I was using tissue paper or I was using rice paper to give you the idea. But you can grab scrap paper from Dollar Tree or little cardstock pieces from wherever, and then just take a dry rub on transfer, and you can get transfers from anywhere. I'm using TDS creative product here. This is a dry rub on transfer, and I'm going to put it over top of a piece of scrap paper that I had in my stash. This is just another idea for you to be able to take this Kirkland's piece and switch it up to make decor that you love that matches your home. Even taking personal photos of family and taking this idea to make decor around the holidays, that would be really cool as well. Let's forget about Etsy and all the amazing things they have to offer on their website, but not today. Not today. People, we are going to be duping this beautiful painted piece from Etsy using some Dollar Tree wood hanging decor pieces, and we're going to need three to be exact. We will need 3 for this project, and some popsicle sticks. Let's not forget the popsicle sticks because we have to make sure that the piece stays together. I just cut the tips off of them, mostly because I don't like the way they look, and if you're gonna sell it, It's nice to know that if people turn it on the back, they don't see popsicle sticks just kind of holding their art together. I arranged these in a way so the holes weren't straight down one side. I don't really know what the madness was behind this, but in my mind, if people did notice there were holes, they weren't just right down one side. So I decided to take some painter's tape and plug up the holes on the back. So as we seal them in through the front, this will stop anything from oozing out. Then I grabbed some Gorilla Glue gel and put a couple little dollops on the back here, and then some hot glue and put in between. It's a good idea to try and not overlap your glue that is going to give you that long lasting hold with your hot glue, because it's a good chance that if you overlap them, they might cancel one or the other out. And if you're reselling pieces or giving them as gifts, or you want them to last for a long time in your home, you don't want the possibility of that glue coming apart. To fill up the holes, use whatever makes you feel fuzzy inside. I've used wood putty, spackling, caulking, joint compound, and today we're going to use some of Tim Holtz texture paste. At this point in my life, I feel like I've used this enough to know once it dries, it's going to make sure these holes are nice and plugged up. For the edges, I'm going to just take some antique Waverly wax and a baby wipe and get a nice little brown tint around the edges. I'm going to pop a little picture of our dupe up here in the corner so you can see how beyond that gray paint, we do have some brown stain kind of showing through right around the edges. And that's all I'm trying to do here is mimic that. So I'm not worried about filling in the whole thing with antique wax. Use whatever kind of paint you want. I like to use chalk paint and mix it with different acrylics. I find that if I take some chalk paint, I can really create different color variations with like one coat kind of coverage. And if you use just a little bit of water, you can also spread your paint out. Now, I wouldn't go spraying it in the bottle, but you know, we be bougie on a budget, people, so we gotta spread our craft supplies where we can. And I can for sure just like spraying this wood right here, little bit, couple little squirty squirts, and then smoosh our paint all around. And it really gives a nice coverage and allows us to blend different color paints in really well. I started with the lighter color here, and I'm just using a baby wipe to spread this around, and then I come in with the darker color. And you can see the lighter paint is still wet. It blends really good. If you can keep your surface wet, that's a little tip, you know what I mean? Keep it wet. Get your mind out of gutter, people. We're crafting, okay? Keep it wet. We're crafting. Paint. Okay, move on. The piece was blended really well together. However, in the picture, there are some really dark sections, and I wanted to create that without having it too blended. So I decided to take some of Antiques Waverly Wax with the dark paint I already had, just to tint it a smidge. And you'll notice that the paint is still wet on our piece. This is allowing the long strokes that I'm creating with the brush to blend in, but still pop enough that that darkness is going to really be bold on our piece. If you do this once your paint is completely dry, you will really be able to see paintbrush streaks. And you want to make sure you go the whole flow of the board so you don't have abrupt stops in your paint. A good rule of thumb is if you want your paint to flow, don't stop your brush in the middle of a project. Go all the way across and make sure it's a little wet, and it will still blend without leaving paintbrush strokes, stops, and streaks. For our tree, we're only going to need to use a fan brush, and you can use different colors of green to accomplish this. I did not make the tree look exactly like the tree in the picture because I think that is a difficult tree to paint if you're new to painting. And I know 1000% that using a fan brush to recreate a Christmas tree is the easiest way. So if you muck up, it is not a big deal. It is usually extremely easy to fix. I like to go in with my darker colors first. And for this, since I really want it to fill the center with darker colors and have some of that bolder dark green on the edges, I started with that bolder dark green first and kind of got the shape of the tree going. And all you do is put a little bit on the edge of your fan brush and just tap, 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 and just build it up. That's all we're doing here. And you can switch out different colored greens as you go along. When you're happy with how you have it built up, grab you some white paint and then just tappity tap 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 right on the edges. Be very ginger with this, people, and here's why I say that. You want to make sure that there's not a ton of white paint on the brush as you're going through and doing this throughout your tree, because then you'll have globs of white and it's going to be hard to create that branch looking effect like I'm doing here with the tree. As you can see, there's barely any paint on this fan brush. So me just doing a little tap 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 in different sections, even in the center, it is giving the tree the appearance that the branches are going different ways. When you're happy how this looks and stay around the edges of the branches, you can come in how I am here with a couple little thick layers just to add for that snowfall effect, like something landed heavier in this section than it did on the rest of the tree. If you got a stencil, use the stencil. If you have a Cricut or stiletto, whatever the silhouette, stiletto, whatever machine you want to print you out a stencil, you go right ahead. I decided to just freehand this, mostly because to me it looked like whoever had painted this freehanded it as well. So I thought I was just going to do the same thing and give it my best go, and I wrote it how I felt comfortable writing it, so it looked authentic and natural instead of just trying to mimic the way they had the words written. So let's take a real quick look at our Itsy piece that we are duping today, and now let's check mine out. Next time you're in Dollar Tree, head on over to their wreath section. I found this frosted berry pinecone beaded wood wreath at Kirkland's for $49.99, and I knew we could dupe it using one of these and some floral foam for that pinecone berry bundle on the top. Our Kirkland's piece had white beads, so I decided to paint mine white too. I'm just using some white chalk paint. If you want to spray paint yours or paint your beads however you want, you go right ahead. This is just how I did it. I'm just going to use one of the little squares in that floral foam pack, and I'm cutting out a small section that is going to snugly fit our beads right on in there. I'm going to use some Type On Quick and Thick to make sure everything sticks together. However, I had a little clog in there again, and I knew my little oddly satisfying lovers out there enjoy watching this stuff. So here you go. Once I had that tube cleared out, I poured a healthy amount into that little space that I cut out in our floral foam and placed the wreath form in there. Then I just went through my floral stash and grabbed things that I had on hand. Obviously, if you need pieces to create your floral part, you go ahead and pick them up. Dollar Tree has pine cones there, they have the greenery there. I just wanted to try and save as much as I could recreating this Kirkland's dupe. It took me a minute to get everything in place, and also added some floral moss over top of the foam in spots that were showing. I thought it needed a little something something, so I grabbed my white chalk paint here and a sponge and just tappity tap tap tapped some flocking all over this floral part of our wreath. Here is our inspiration, and here is my dupe that I only spent $2.50 on, since I had a large portion of the greenery and the pine cones in my stash. I'm a big fan of plate decor, so when I seen this piece on Pinterest, I was like, oh yes, we have to try and dupe this. Now I know Dollar Tree has some chargers, and I didn't have any of those on hand, but I did have this one on hand in my stash from Christmas tree shops. It was only $2.99. I missed that store. It went out of business. Anyhow, I'm gonna give mine that frosted frothed, what is it? What is the correct term? Flocked is what Google told me, to give a tree a heavy layer of artificial snow to make it look like it's covered in snow. You're welcome for the little educational lesson. Since our Pinterest piece looked like it was flocked, I mean, at least in my opinion, it looked like it was flocked. Anyhow, we're just painting some white paint over it, okay? We're just taking a dry brush and just a little dry brushing. Then I went rummaging around in my stash for a word, and I found joy hanging out in my little metal container. Use whatever word you would like. If you have bless, by all means, pop that on there. I also grabbed some florals that I had left over from a recent trip to the at-home store and Dollar Tree, and just cut these down to size to go along the side of our plate. To attach everything together, I just grabbed some twine and I wrapped it completely around the center. I also really like that rusted look that the twine gives, so this just made sense to me. Attach yours, of course, whatever way you think works best. And then grab whatever accents you think makes sense. I had some ornaments from Walmart and Dollar Tree and just cut up little pieces to place in mine. I admire hand-painted glass anything, but this little snowman reaching for these snowflakes on this glass bottle was so adorable, I had to try and dupe it. Now, lucky for me, I have a friend that saves all types of glass for me, and they happen to have this green bottle, which was perfect for this project. I'm going to use multi-surface paint for this project. I know multi-surface works well on glass. Make sure whatever you choose to paint with, it says it works on glass. There are a bunch of ways that you can make your piece sturdy. You see here that I'm using some sponges just to keep it like stabilized, but I'm also picking up the piece, putting it back down, trying to one, make sure it's not rolling all over the place, and two, making sure you have a good view. It took me about 2 days overall to paint this piece, and it's important that when you're painting, your strokes, they go in the way that you're trying to have somebody view what you're sharing. When I work on something like this, I notice that it's just best if I'll do a certain type of layer and then I'll allow it to dry, come back in with some shading, and back and forth. I am not a professional painter, and I explain things as best as I feel that I can, so that way you at home can try and recreate whatever you see me creating. I've been painting probably longer than I've been doing anything. My mother has ceramic pieces that are over 30 years old. That's how long I've been painting. You can absolutely use different variations of gray, different variations of white. You'll notice here that I'm literally just taking the black and the white, mixing them together to get that perfect shade of gray. And then I'm even switching it up, making it a little bit deeper. Sometimes it's just best to keep things simple, especially when you're trying something you've never tried before, trying to pull in so many colors. It can really just frustrate you and possibly make a mess. When I got to this point, I knew I was going to need to color in more of those white sections, add some more highlights, as well as color in this yellow scarf a couple of times. I also noticed my hand was hitting that paint, and I figured it's time to let this sit and dry overnight. The next day, I started off with the snowflakes, and I painted some, and I used the other end of my paintbrush and dotted some pieces on there. You can create these however you would like. They're super simple. Just draw some lines and then some more lines. And then I started shading in our snowman and adding in our accents. Whether I'm using a paintbrush or a pencil, I'm always horrible at smiles. I don't know why. They always look crooked and wonky to me, and I always want to restart them 5,000 times. The little arms were the easiest part of the snowman to create on here, probably. And then things went south for about 5 minutes. Look at it! I made a boo-boo! You don't want to know how many cuss words you were spared in that error. And it just keeps getting worse. I tried to touch it up in my paintbrush. I didn't wipe it all the way off. Now it's got orange in there. Having patience doing this for a living is tough, waiting for paint to dry. After about 30 minutes, it was good to go and I was able to fix it. I added in some cork bottle lights, which I got off Amazon. They are down in the description box in my Amazon affiliate link for anyone interested. How adorable is this Etsy dupe? If you're looking for more Christmas DIY inspiration, check out this video right here. And as always, people, thank y'all so much for stopping by and hanging out with me today. Until next time.